Hey everybody, welcome back to E3 RVing, and today, unfortunately, we're going to take you through what a blowout looks like. And I was the one that drove this coach when this blowout happened, and I'm going to take you through everything through insurance, how to deal with it, the roadside assistance, the damage and what the damage looks like. We're going to go through tires, how this can happen, when it can happen, more importantly, how to drive when this happens in this situation. So we're going to go ahead and take you through all of this, all the behind the scenes, and let's go ahead and dig in. Hey everybody, welcome back. So I was driving this big, massive Class A diesel pusher when we had the blowout. And fortunately, I've had a lot of training with E3 RVing. And by the way, if you go to e3rving.com, you can get the full courses and things on how to drive these coaches and operate them. So I knew enough how to deal with this blowout when it happened. And we're gonna go through that and we're gonna talk all that. But let's first talk about some of the issues you can have with a tire like this. There's more to worry about than just a blowout. And that's the situation we had. Because originally, when the incident happened, it wasn't technically a blowout. The tire can actually fail. So maybe at the seam or different areas, it actually just comes apart. If you have a tire that we had on here and it was 4 years old, you know, that's getting borderline, especially if you're not always using the coach. You can get into all the technical stuff about tires, how to maintain them, how to deal with them, know what to do in E3 RVing. There's whole courses on tires and everything you need to know. But in a nutshell, if this coach is sitting all the time and it's not riding a lot, we're not running it a lot, you know, the tire's going to degrade faster. And you get to 4 or 5 years, and that's borderline. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I'm not suggesting you go more than that. But if it's running all the time and you're always using it, the tire actually holds up a little bit better. And there's a lot of technical reasons for that. You know, the molecules in the tire move around and things, and it keeps the tire somewhat fresh. So this isn't about technical aspects of tire. But I bring this up because when this blowout happened, the tire didn't blow out originally. And usually, you know, blowouts are going to happen somewhere in the sidewall. And you can, if you're inspecting your tires when you're doing your walk around and you see cracks going down here like that, that's not good. That's when you really need to start thinking about changing that tire. We didn't have that. Tires were really good, but the tire failed at the seam. So when the tire failed, the treads came off the tire and it started to go down, and it sounded like a blowout, but not as bad as a blowout. It did a little bit of damage, but not too bad. And this is important for you to know because I'm going to go through how to safely deal with these multiple situations. So when that first incident happened and the tire failed and came apart, fortunately, I knew enough to know not to slam on the brakes. I put a lot of pressure on the gas so I could get power to maintain directional control of the RV, which we did, and then we were able to kind of get it over to the side of the road. If you were to slam on the brakes in a situation where you totally had a blowout, especially at high speeds, that's where you're going to get into issues because you're not going to be able to control the coach. Because if you slam on the brakes, I want you to think about what happens. All the weight of this coach comes slamming down onto the front and then all the way down to the tire that's failed, down on the rim, and then it's going to pull the coach off. So picture this. You're driving down the street, and let's just say you're doing like 65 miles an hour, and you have a blowout on this right front tire. If you slam on the brakes, all the weight, just like I said, is going to come to the front and then to the tire that failed, and the tire's on the ground. So what's going to happen? The coach is going to want to pull to the right because all that weight's going to that front tire. So it's pulling to the right and wants to pull you off the road. The normal tendency of people to do is to brake, which makes that situation worse. Then they try to steer immediately into that so it doesn't pull off the street. That's where you see all kinds of YouTube videos and stuff where the coach goes to the left, then they pull it to the right, and then the coach gets out of control and then it tumbles. That's one of the most dangerous things with driving one of these RVs, other than, you know, accidents and things. And that's why that's the number one thing we train at E3 RVing. If you get a blowout on this tire on the right-hand side and you floor the gas, the gets the coach a little bit more momentum. It gives you the ability to steer and maintain directional control. Now, I'm not saying that you want to step on the gas until you get to 100 miles an hour. It's just step on the gas so you can maintain control. As soon as you still got control, now you come off the gas slowly while you're still maintaining directional control, then get the coach off to the side of the street. That's the concept. And if you really want all the training on that, like I said, go over to E3 RVing. So I want to tell you what happened here, because there's a couple of things from a dangerous situation once you get out of the coach you got to deal with. The tire failed, but there was still air in the tire when we got it to the side and pulled over. The tire wasn't totally blowout, but it was totally damaged. It made a little bit of damage and stuff inside here, but there was air in the tire. That is a very dangerous situation for when you get outside the coach. Now let me tell you why. This didn't happen in the first failure of the tire. This all happened with a massive explosion that once the coach was off the side of the road, we had to move it another 2 or 3 feet to get off. Well, when we did that, I want you to think about what's happening here. You don't have the treads and the tires kind of failed. It's like a water balloon that you're squeezing, getting ready to pop. So when we got the coach, we got to get into it and try to move it a couple feet. As soon as we moved 3 or 4 feet to get it off the side of the road, it exploded. That's when all this happened. And we're going to get inside here. We're going to show you all the damage and things you're going to need to know with, because there's a lot of stuff you need to know about. If you have this happen, you got to go look at it immediately. Why do I talk about that? I talk about that is because when we first came out of the coach and it was air in it, some people look, they put their head in there, they're looking at the damage, they're kind of getting close to it, trying to figure out what's going off. That is a time bomb just ready to explode. So if you get into a situation where you get the tire filled but it didn't totally blow yet, first thing I would do is get people out of the coach, dogs, pets, everybody, out of the coach and way off the road and away from the coach. If the coach doesn't have to move and you're in that situation where that's ready to blow, like I said, a water balloon, I get the jacks down and get the pressure off that tire as soon as you can. Then the next thing I would do, probably if I'm not fluent in how to operate these things, is I might get the pressure off it until roadside assistant comes, and I would just stay away from the coach. Me, I would probably come out and I'd just pull the Schrader valve and I'd let the air out of that thing. Not a good idea. You know, if you're not an expert in this stuff, I wouldn't suggest you to do that. Just get away from the coach till roadside assistant get there, let them deal with it. But you could do that. In this situation, we moved it and it exploded, and you see what happens here. Now what do we do? Well, let me just show you the damage that the pressure in a 365 or a 315 tire can do. You can see how it's bent the steel and stuff. That's why I say stay away from this tire. Also, you see you've got all kinds of problems here. Here's the fuel supply. Fuel supply blew out. There was fuel dripping on the inside. You could smell it. More importantly, here's the second big hazard. All of these wires that you see here, they were all hanging. You got 12 volt in here, you got sensors in here. All those wires were hanging. They were touching the frame and touching each other and sparking. Fuel is behind here that leaked. You got vapors and things here with fuel smells. As soon as I came out and we saw that, it blew. We saw what happened here. I immediately told everybody, get away, get over by the trees, way off the highway. Then I got some snippers. I came over and I just cut every one of these wires that were all dangling and touching the frame. And then we taped them up. Okay, so now I've got that stabilized, so that's not an issue. The tire is already blown, that's not an issue. I got it up on jacks just to stabilize the coach, and then we move on from there. All right, so let's take a few more minutes, and we're gonna go through and show you all the damage that happened here and all the things you got to deal with and stuff that's going to come up with your insurance company and roadside and stuff like that. But I just want to take a quick minute and talk about a safety issue on driving a coach like this. And speed has to do a lot with it, and the roads you're on have to do a lot with it. I say this because I know a lot of people that will take a coach like this, which is perfectly capable until an issue like this happens, that will be driving this coach around at 70, 80 miles an hour. I'm a little more cautious of that. I'm typically never driving 80 miles an hour by any means, but whether it's 65 to 70-ish in that range in a coach like this, I'm typically not going to be up in the high 60s into 70s if I'm in 95 in downtown Philly and there's trucks all around me and cars all around me and things. Because just think, you have a blowout in that situation. First of all, if you're going 70 versus 60, the control issue is significantly decreased. My point being is if you get a blowout at 55, 60, you can control the coach a lot better and you have a much better chance of not having any major issues going off the road or into other people at 55, 60. You get to 70, 75, it's a sliding scale where the amount of control you're going to lose and the issue is going to become so much more detrimental at those speeds. My point being is if you're in New York City or in Chicago, there's a lot of cars around, you're in 5-lane highway, probably not a good idea to be running at 70, 75 in a coach like this, which you shouldn't do anyway. If I'm out in some Minnesota or some long highways and stuff, there's still an issue. It's not just about that there's no cars around, it's also about the road itself. So picture this, you're out in whatever, West Texas or something, beautiful roads, nice flat, beautiful roads, I love them. That's the best thing about traveling on a coach like this. And then on the side of the road, there's about 2 or 3 feet, and then it just drops off into a ditch and then comes back up. You've seen lots of roads like that. That's another road that I'm definitely a lot slower on. If I have to slam my brakes on that and I go off the road, the coach will definitely flip over if it pulls me over in their ditch. Then there's a lot of roads where it's 2 lanes, flat, beautiful, and it's flat, grass or whatever for, 10, 20 yards off the sides of the roads. I could be a little more lax on that, and I might push it a little bit in those situations. Again, I'm not telling you what you should do and shouldn't do in a situation. I'm just sharing experiences with you and knowing what we know with all the people that we train and things like that. Let's go through some of the damage and show you some of the damage here, and then we're going to talk about the insurance companies and how to handle them. Obviously, you've got a situation here where not only is this fender totally blown off, but then inside here underneath, you can see that all kinds of the wires are blown apart. The lights are blown apart in there. You can have wires hanging in there. You get sensors for your doors and stuff hanging in there. You can see all the broken parts and pieces in here. Some of the things that are going to happen, a lot of the wires in these Class A's that go through here that actually get blown out are things like your door sensors to know if your doors are closed or if your doors are open, or locking mechanisms, things like that. You might have to deal with it. Worst case, hopefully the coach will run after you get your tire on. You could tape it up. If you are technical and things like that, and you know what wires are out here, you got a wire that you just got to, put them together so it knows that the door is locked, things of that sort. That's up to you. I'm not telling you to be technical and get in here and start wiring stuff up when you have an issue like this, but I just know how people handle these certain things. Hopefully your airbags are fine and your jacks are fine and stuff like that, because you're going to need your jack when roadside assistance gets there. Try to get that up off the ground. It certainly will help them. Okay, so let me talk more about the damage. Let's show you the damage and what you can expect in a blowout with a big 365 here like this. So first of all, on the front here inside, the explosion was so bad that it hit this wall, pushed through the wall, and busted the rail that's here for the stairs. So there's a rail piece that's broke, and you can see the stairs a little bit weak now. So that powerful, when the stairs were up, it went through and busted this rail. All the plastic, everything is gone from inside here. Fortunately, the airbags are fine, the jacks are fine. Clearly, the whole fender has been destroyed. It's pulled it off of the fuel here. All the lights are gone, side lights, the cameras are gone, things of that sort. And then as I showed you, the door, which is big piece of steel, totally bent up, blew off the coach, bounced up and scratched the coach here. And then you can see inside here, you got 3/4-inch plywood that it literally blew through that plywood. So that just gives you an example of how powerful that is. So you go back to what I said before about sticking your head in here and coming out here and checking everything out when it hasn't totally blown yet or it's not on the ground. You could see that this could have turned into a much, much worse situation. Now let's take a minute and just talk about insurance, the process, procedures that typically will happen. And there's some things you need to know here, or at least things to be conscious about. And I'm also going to talk about the repair process as well. In this situation, I'm not going to name insurance companies or repair centers or anything like that. The insurance company will send out an adjuster to look at this. Almost every time, they're going to give you an estimate and a price. So they said it's going to be $6,800. Not even close. I know that because I'm in the industry and I've seen enough blowouts and talked to enough people to know it's $20,000 to $30,000. I did just put it on record with the insurance company. I just said, listen, I'm going to let you know right now, this will never be $6,800. It's going to be much more. And hopefully they're going to say to you, that's okay. We're going to get you to the service center. And then once the service center goes through what they need and what they're going to do, we'll do a supplement and our guys will come out and then we'll get that all approved and do that. That's typically the process and the procedure. So there's no loans on this coach. That will make a difference on how they work with you. So on this coach with no loans, they just wanted to send a check. Now they wanted me to sign off. Now this is a key thing and I just want to make sure you're just conscious of it. It's a normal process. Doesn't mean you're not going to get paid when the final bill comes through, but just be conscious of it and maybe ask your insurance adjuster when you're going through it. Because a lot of times some insurance companies will want you to click a box, sign off on it, or go cash that check and then basically say, oh, we paid you for it, that's it. Hopefully that's not going to happen. If you're not using their service center, you might get into more issues. So you got to talk through that with your insurance company. Who's your service center? Okay, it's this company. I know who they are. They're reputable. They are a dealer for this brand. Great, perfect. I call them and say, okay, so I understand your insurance company, ABCs, that you work with them. Yes, we do. How does it typically work? And let them tell you what I just told you and make sure you verify that with the adjuster, your insurance company, as well as the service center. That's just for your own peace of mind. It should work out with you. Most of these insurance companies are pretty good about it, but I just want to throw that out there because you want to ask the questions like, if I deposit this check or if I sign off on this, does that mean I'm not going to get the extra that comes when the service center says it has to be done. Just want to put that out there. Just be conscious, understand how that process works. Okay, so now how do you work with the service center? Well, most service centers will say to you, oh, just bring us the coach. We'll start ordering parts and we'll get going on it. And then I'll say, well, how long is it going to take? 2 or 3 or 4 months? And they're going to say, well, it's going to depend on when we get parts. Some parts may take us 6 weeks to get. So your coach is going to sit there for 6 weeks. There is different ways you can work with this. I know that's a frustration in the RV world where you'll take their coach, they'll figure it all out, and then maybe you get it back, maybe you don't. You can work with them and say, well, tell you what, why don't you tell me all the parts you need, what it's going to cost, and then a lot of times they'll say, I have to have it here. If that's convenient and you can actually get it there, great. But if you work with good companies, you can take tons of pictures of everything because they know this. They deal with blowouts every single week. Take tons of pictures of the whole thing and you can send it to them and say, here's all the pictures, figure out what you need, order the parts, and then tell me which of the parts are going to take the longest to get in. Oh, well, it's this fender is going to take 6 to 8 weeks to get in, or this part's going to take 6 weeks. It's like, okay, no problem. I will pay you right now for that fender. You guys order it. And then as soon as you tell me a week out that it's going to be there, then I can bring the coach to you and then it'll only take 2 or 3 weeks to fix, correct? So that's how I dealt with the service center, knowing what I know. And they said, yeah, absolutely, maybe an extra week. And I'll say, okay, so I'll plan on 6 weeks, even though you're saying 4. I'm just telling you how to kind of work with them and what's going to happen there. Now, the coach is still in my hands and I'm waiting for them to get the parts, and I paid for the parts. And I paid for the parts because the insurance company sent me a check already. You could just kind of work that situation. I'm trying to just give you a little bit of insight on maybe questions you ask or ways that you can work with these companies, because what I don't want to have happen is that the coach goes to them so that they can quote it, and then it sits there, or they say, okay, we'll start ordering parts. They pull it in, they fix one, they pull it out for another week or two. They pull it in, fix another part, pull it in, out for a week or two. Everybody's a little different. You know, the companies, the service centers and stuff that deal with coaches like this are usually pretty good, and they understand our frustrations and they're very good about it. So just do that research and figure that out. That's a little bit about the insurance, how to deal with the insurance. All right, so just a side note I want to talk a little bit about, and it has to do with hours a day you drive and fatigue. You know, there's guys like us, we think we're all macho and stuff. We can drive 12 to 14 hours. Yeah, I've done it. And you know what? And coaches like this, it's comfortable and you can actually do it and not be too stressed and not too fatigued. But here's the issue. If you've been driving that long, you get 12 hours, 14 hours, and you're at midnight, 1 in the morning, and you have a situation like this, a couple things happen. One is it's hard to get roadside assistance. It's going to cost you more at 1 in the morning. But more importantly is your decision-making process and your situational awareness will be significantly declined. Now, I'm a pilot. I drive boats. I'm a captain for boats. I'm a pilot. I fly airplanes and aerobatics. And situational awareness is one of the most important things that we think about. And it's not about situational awareness of, you know, you can do it and you can drive 10 to 12 hours. It's when there's an issue or when there's an emergency or something like that. And you make bad decisions when you're fatigued or you've been driving 15 hours. So I just throw that out there because I know a lot of really good, responsible RV drivers will say, I'll do maybe 500, 600, 300, 500, 600. Some will say, hey, I only like to do 8 hours and then sleep. That's a good rule of thumb. You really should try to do that, because I even know me, I was at 10 hours that day. And even at 10 hours when that happened at 10 o'clock at night, there was some decisions that I could have made better and I should have made better. And that could turn into making wrong decisions that can be deadly or make a situation even worse. So just want to throw that little side note in there to be conscious of that. It's not if you can do it, it's if you should do it. Let's move on. All right, so a couple other things as we're wrapping up that I want to share with you that are probably some things you should have all the time. If you have the luxury of having a stacker trailer or something like that, the 365 tire is something I just suggest that you have. They're not cheap, you know, they're $800, $900. But the reason I say that on the 365s is because these are rare in a lot of roadside service, roadsides and stuff. They're getting better and better. But boy, if you want your life to be easy and you don't have a problem with having one of these with you in a stacker trailer, I would suggest that. If not, it might you might be stranded for a little bit until somebody finds that tire, because the 365s are rare. Now the 315s that are on the back and on most Class A's RVs, those are pretty readily available. An example is the 4 roadside assistance companies we called after we fixed this, just to see if they had this and what it would have been like. Only one had one in inventory, and the rest of them in that area where the incident happened, none of them had a 365, this particular tire, the 365/70 R22.5. If you want more of this stuff, go to e3rving.com. We got a ton of courses on all this different stuff that I'm talking about. 2 things I make sure I always have: about 5 rolls of duct tape and a ton of wire ties, zip ties, because it's always situations like this that you need those things here. Whether you got wires that are all hanging and you got to get them away from the tire because you're fixing it, wire tie them up there. But the duct tape, boy, you have an incident like this, it saved us, because this was blown open. Of course, the door was on the street and we were able to throw it in our towed vehicle. We were able to wire tie some stuff up here, at least get this closed. And if you had enough duct tape to even just tape a whole piece of something like this in place to get you home or get you to your next destination, or, you know, wherever you Walmart or something, you can be in a safe area, or you're gonna have to get tools and take them off or whatever. So I always say, man, I always have 4 or 5 rolls of duct tape, and it saved us. We had all this all duct taped up and felt good about it. Those are like the biggest things about blowouts and stuff, and hopefully you'll learn something from this experience. In a way, I'm glad that I was able to have this experience and share more with all of our E3 Camping and E3 RVing members to give you some more insights on it. Give us some comments down below if you had a blowout, how you guys dealt with it, what are the things you didn't think about, but more importantly, let me know some of the stuff you would have liked to know that I talked about or didn't talk about here. All right, so guys, hopefully you enjoyed everything about this blowout, because I know I didn't enjoy it, but I was glad to be able to share it with you. So we will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.